Yeah. Oh, God, excuse me. Howdy, y'all. Rowan here. Sorry about that. Well, I got your attention. Hello. Welcome to my channel. Today, I wanted to do a VR, a fun little response video. Quinn over at Lucid Moons. Hi. They tagged me in their tarot through movies genre tag that they made. I think this is really cool and I'm so excited to participate in it. I've got a little piece of paper over here with all of the prompts written down and then all of my responses to the prompts, both movies that they reminded me of and also decks. So some of the decks are going to match the genre and some of the decks are going to match the specific movies that I have selected. So that's not really how this tag has to work. Just because I did it that way and Quinn did it that way, that doesn't mean that you else who might participate have to do it that way. This is just, if you like talking about movies, this is an opportunity to do so. If you just like talking about tarot, then by all means stick to tarot, right? Like, no pressure to do it any one specific way if you decide to join in. Whatever your little heart sings, that's what we want you to do. All right? So the first prompt that we have today, let's go ahead and get into it instead of milling about. Our first prompt is sci-fi, a deck that incorporates imaginative, speculative, and or futuristic concepts. I've got so many different films written down for this one. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 2001 Space Odyssey, the OG Star Trek films for the original series. Those are some of those are the best Star Trek in my opinion, and amazing series of films that is just an extension of the TV show in a truer, more focused format in my opinion. And then my favorite, one of my favorite, the one that I think of the most, like if you say sci-fi film, this one for some reason is the one that comes to mind first out of all of them that I just mentioned. But Arrival, the one about language, that one like genuinely changed the way I think about the world. Love that movie so much. And so I've got two decks to show off here. One of them is very obvious. One of them's a surprise. So my first choice is the Zeke's Arcana for this. This deck, I mean like, oh, excuse me, knocking the camera. Good gracious. Oh, I'm like super uncentered. Let's fix that. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so the Zeke's Arcana, it's a Pips with Feeling kind of deck. It does have two extra cards that I keep in the deck just for funsies. I don't know what I would do if I pulled them in a reading. They've never actually popped up. But this deck really matches that sci-fi feel. It's speculative, it's imaginative, it's spacey, it's alien-y, but it's also like recognizable. It taps into nostalgia. It utilizes things that we recognize in a foreign setting, in a truly alien setting, in order to allow us to sort of separate ourselves from the issues being discussed, right? Like that's upside down. That's what the whole genre is about, speculative fiction. And so the Zeke's Arcana is my sci-fi choice. I'm going to try not to spend too long on each deck here because I don't want to make this video too long. I already know it's going to be a long one, so let me not keep you too long here. All right, my next choice for the sci-fi prompt is actually a playing card deck, Netic. This I got from the Art of Play storefront website. Cybernetic. This is by Ivan Moskovich. And I do read with playing cards as like a type of cartomancy. Like obviously I don't know that I read them traditionally in any way, shape, or form, but I do read playing cards. I don't find it particularly difficult. But this deck is definitely sci-fi. Like it's these oh, what do you call this? oh man, we did these in school. Gyroscope art. It's like gyroscope art. And it's super stunning, and I'm really happy to have it in my collection, and it's fun to read with and to shuffle. So that's another sci-fi one, but that one's a little bit more, that one gives me 2001 Space Odyssey and Arrival, where Zeke's Arcana gives me Star Trek and Hitchhiker's Guide. So those are the differences there. The sci-fi, the lights, fanciful, we have a hopeful version of the future sci-fi versus we have hope for the future, but first humanity's got to get its shit together because we suck so bad, kind of sci-fi. Let me get a drink of water. I just spilled, that's okay. Prompt number 2, we have horror, a deck that scares, frightens, or disturbs you. So for this prompt, I also have 2 answers. The first answer is a quieter, well, they're both on the quiet side of horror, in my opinion. So I loved The Witch, or The Witch. I think that's got Anya Taylor-Joy in it. Am I making that up, or was she totally the lead? Anyway, the Hush Tarot is my choice for this one. This is like the kind of horror that comes in the woods. This is the kind of horror that frightens you from the bottoms of your roots to the tips of your leaves, because you know that death and decay will come for you just as it has come for all of the trees around you this winter. That's kind of the vibe of this deck. It is a little bit fanciful, but to me it's like it's primarily horrifying. But like in a fun way. I enjoy this deck. I don't read with it all that often. I've said so many times my issues with this deck. I do not love it. I don't even know if I could say that I like it, but I have it, I own it, so I'm working on a connection with it. But this card right here especially is just so The Witch. So that is the Hush Tarot by Jeremy Hush. And then my other pick for the horror genre, and okay, so like horror is one of my favorite genres, but I primarily interact with it through the medium of Stephen King, and it's primarily novels. I don't think Stephen King movies are nearly as scary as his books are. I mean, like, Christine was great. Like, I think that one's actually scary. And then The Shining is terrifying, but it's not a great... It's not honest to the story. It really changes what the core elements of the story, what makes the story scary, like, from film to book. Like, the things that are frightening in the book are not the same things that are frightening in the movie. Let me put it that way. But one of, if not my favorite horror film is actually John Carpenter's The Thing, the 1982 film, not the 2011 remake. Haven't seen it, don't care to. But the original 1982 film, The Thing, is amazing. And this is going to be a controversial pick that I don't know if everyone's going to agree with. But I've chosen an Oracle deck for this one, and the deck that most gives me the body horror vibe that The Thing gives me is the Iris Oracle. Like, there is something so uncomfortable about this. Like, okay, so the prompt is a deck that scares, frightens, or disturbs you. This deck does all of that. This deck scares me because it makes me look at parts of myself that I, like, look at myself in ways that I didn't want to. It frightens me because it makes me feel like maybe I do have something to learn from this deck. And it's got that body horror aspect to it. Like, specifically, there is at least one body card in here. But Suppression of a Star Being by Hands Unworthy is a horrifying card, in my opinion. I don't do reversals, thank you. And then the body card is what I'm looking for right now. Oh, Left Out with the Wolves. This one's horrifying. And then, The Hold. Oh my god, this is like the scariest expression of needing to be held I've ever seen in my fucking life. Ooh, where is it? I'm gonna flip through this entire deck before I find it, aren't I? Ungrateful Daughter and Earthly Mother. This card is so horrifying. And maybe that's a me thing, but like, this deck is so body horror. Oh my god, we're over 10 minutes in and I've only done 2 prompts. Okay, let's go! Next we have Romance, a deck that focuses on relationships or romantic love between people with an overall emotionally satisfying or optimistic tone. Oh god, this is not going to be a fast answer because the movie that I want to talk about here. Okay, so the romance movie that I chose for this is The Way He Looks, which is a film. It was made in Brazil and it's in Portuguese and it's based on the 2010 short film I Don't Want to Go Back Alone, or I Don't Want to Go Alone. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I remember seeing that short film on Tumblr and then like just totally falling in love with it and wanting more and more of that story. And then again, when I got back on Tumblr a couple years later, it was circulating that they had released the full film, and it was going around in, like, the full film, The Way He Looks, and it was circulating on the festival circuit, but I did not have access to that, to those films at that time, and so I was just like, chomping at the bit for it. And finally, it came out on Netflix, and I got to watch the full thing. It's not on Netflix anymore, but you can watch it on Prime Video. The Way He Looks, it is a gay romance story about a blind kid who falls in love with the school's new student, right? The main character, the protagonist, is in this difficult situation where his best female friend thinks that they are definitely going to end up, like, as a thing, but he comes to realize that he's homosexual, and he's got this thing for their new classmate, and it's this wonderful love triangle story that comes to a lovely conclusion, and I really enjoy it. I highly recommend it if you like queer media, and if you don't like queer media, I recommend it anyways, because you need to broaden your horizons. Thank you. Alright, and then the deck, I have 2 decks, I'm so sorry. The decks that I've chosen to base on this genre, one of them is a super obvious answer, and I have to bring it up. Actually, you know what? No, I was going to say the Goddess of Love Tarot, but everyone's talked about that deck. Everyone knows that deck. Here, let me just show you real quick. The Goddess of Love Tarot. It's a romance deck. It's, like, this is a drama romance, kind of deck. Takes itself very seriously. Collage art, very sexual. Okay. But my actual answer, my real answer, is the Zerner Farber Tarot. This tarot deck is basically also the same thing as the Enchanted Tarot. They're one and the same as far as artwork goes. It's just they're released under different names because the size of the cards is different. The Enchanted Tarot is larger and it has giant borders around the cards, and then the Zerner Farber is the same artwork in, like, basically a pocket-sized version. An almost pocket size. I think this is Trump size is what I think it is. Either that or bridge. I don't know. I don't know cards. This is too big for bridge, I think. Anyways, this deck, the guidebook, every single card gives a way to interpret the meaning of the card in relation to romance. And while the deck itself is romantic in a capital R way, the guidebook is romantic in a lowercase r way. And so I really enjoy this deck for, I mean, like, I don't just use it for interpersonal readings, I use it anytime I need to feel romantic about my reading. And I mean that in the capital R way. Like, romance as in big swelling emotions in the music where the harp comes in at the same time as the timpani. I mean capital R romance where you're in a bad mood and you start crying right as the thunder claps and the sky opens up and it begins raining. Like, that's the kind of romance this deck brings. And so that is my choice for that. Then our next prompt is this one I have. Okay. So our next one is Thriller, a deck that delivers tension, surprise, and or a sense of impending doom and keeps you on the edge of your seat. So the film that I have chosen for this is Heat by Michael Mann. Now, we were just talking a moment ago about, like, actual queer media. Heat by Michael Mann is, like, homoerotic queer media. Like, it's not actually gay, but it's totally about two men who are so obsessed with each other that their lives cannot exist one without the other. So, I mean, like, it's a hate kind of relationship, but that's passion right there, baby. Hold on. I do be thirsty. Excuse me. Okay, like, I'm really thirsty. Like, I've been moving. My apartment's really hot. Like, I am so thirsty. I'm going to be taking a lot of sip breaks. But the deck that I've chosen for the thriller category is, and I want to highlight the sense of impending doom, because something about this deck just really gives me that sense of impending doom. And that is the tarot as color. My box is a little bit worse for the wear. I don't know how it keeps getting dirty. I don't take this thing anywhere with me. It stays home all the time, yet it keeps getting dirtier and dirtier. I don't reach for this deck very often because it does make me so anxious to work with, because there's something here that I don't know. This deck knows things that I don't know, and it's keeping those secrets from me because it doesn't think that knowing is going to help my case, and as such, it's terrifying. This deck really frightens me, and I love it for that. Like, it's very occult heavy. It has these Golden Dawn titles at the bottom, and it actually came in an order that's more elementally associated than anything else. Fascinating deck. I thoroughly love it, but it definitely does give me that sense of impending doom. It does give me that feeling that there's something here that, like, there's a bomb under the table that our main character has either forgotten about or does not know about. That's the energy of this deck. So Tarot as color and Heat by Michael Mann. Our next category is Mystery, a deck that is mysterious, suspenseful, and doesn't reveal answers right away. Reading with this deck may feel like solving a puzzle. So Quinn, in their original video, they referenced Knives Out, which is an excellent film. It's one of my favorite mystery films. So I'm going to kind of cop out here, and I'm going to bring up Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out. And the deck that I have that most gives the energy of that film is actually also a playing card deck, and this one I have not, this one's kind of cheating because I have not actually read with this deck yet, but I already know that it's going to give me that experience. This is the Eames or Eames playing card deck. This is specifically the Hang It All Edition 2. I also got this on Art of Play. This deck is mid-century modern deliciousness. I want them all facing the correct way, please. And it warms my little heart. It's this beautiful, whoop, 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 whoop. So you'll find that it's still in order because I've been too afraid of how perfect it is to shuffle it so far. But this deck is just dots in various colors. The colors do not change across the suits, they repeat instead. So the dot artwork is the same 13 to 13, but as you'll notice here, this deck does not have court cards, it just goes straight up to 13 and then repeats itself. It does not have aces, it has ones, and it does not have courts, it has numbers, all the way through, and the only thing you get are these repeating dot images in this mid-century modern style. So this both matches with the energy of Glass Onion and that film series, and it also is a deck that I guarantee you is going to feel like I have to sit with it. I have to contemplate the elemental associations, the numerological associations, the astrological associations. I'm going to be sitting with this deck and thinking about Golden Dawn titles and Thoth keywords, but I'm also going to be thinking about Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, and like, because this deck is, I'm like, you can't see it, can't see me, because this deck is so, I don't want to say minimalist because it's not minimalist the artistic style, it's minimalist in the facts. I'm like, it's factually, there's not a lot going on. It's simple, it's simple without being simplistic, it's minimalist without being a movement. That's what I'll say. And it's going to allow me to really soak in the mystery of what the cards mean, and that's my choice for that prompt. Then we get action, and action is probably the genre of film that I watch the most because it's my husband's preferred genre, and he picks our movies most of the time because factually he just has better taste in film than I do. He is a film nerd in a way that I am not. So even though I give him a hard time about not letting me pick movies, it's probably for the best that he's the one who picks them most of the time. And so for this, I would not have seen these two films if it were not for him, so shout out to my husband for showing me these great movies. But they're both John Woo films, and they're both very homoerotic, and they both star Chow Yun-fat, who... Chow Yun-fat, I love you. Call me, okay? You're beautiful. You can do whatever you want in this life. You are amazing. Keep up the good work, and most importantly, call me. A Better Tomorrow and The Killer. And both of these films are very similar in energy to Heat by Michael Mann, but they're less thriller, more boom boom gun shooty, because it's John Woo. There's tons of guns, tons of bullets flying everywhere. There's this incredible hallway scene in one of them where Chow Yun-fat is stashing guns through the hallway as he comes up it, and then later he goes back down the hallway and pulls all the guns to save his ass. Like, rather than changing bullets, he just changes guns. Very John Woo. Incredible. If you've ever seen Face Off, that's like his big English film. I think one of the movies, A Better Tomorrow or The Killer, one of them is in Cantonese, I want to say, and the other one's in Mandarin. But, I mean, learn to read subtitles. If you can't because of, like, accessibility purposes, that's different. And in which case, I'm sorry for lumping you in with the people who just don't want to do it. I know plenty of people who just don't want to read subtitles because they don't like sitting there listening to foreign film, which I get for, like, background noise, but, like, come on, broaden your horizons. Same thing with the queer cinema here. Like, broaden those horizons, baby. But the first deck that I picked for this genre is the Couture Tarot. I didn't even read the prompt properly. Okay, action. A deck that features loud, wild, and spectacular imagery that may be overwhelming, but you love it anyways. And this deck has that. It's got bright colors. It's full of tons of texture. There is fashion prints, there are naturescapes, there are animals and statues, and it's incredible. This deck is so much fun to read with. It's brash and loud, and it doesn't always give you the answer right away. It kind of draws you along to the end to make sense of it. And I actually really like using this deck to communicate with Apollyon energy, actually. So, like, let me not get into my spiritual practice. That'll make this video way longer than it needs to be. Especially because I have another choice for this genre. I have a second deck that I want to mention. So that's the Couture Tarot. It is independently produced, as is the next deck that I'm going to sing the praises of. And my next choice for action is the Star Power Tarot. This deck has a lot of guns in it and a lot of knives. I mean, technically all tarot decks have a lot of weapons in them because of the sword suit, but I mean, like, people outside of the sword suit have weapons in this one, and, ooh, I love that. It's really awesome. This deck kind of gives me, like, oh god, what is his name? The Foot Lover. Quentin Tarantino vibes in some of the cards, like, just the constant references to, other media that shows how educated the artist is, in, like, how culturally educated this artist is in the media that they consume. This deck gives me Tarantino vibes in that way. So this doesn't really match John Woo energy. This is definitely just a straight up action deck, like, for the genre. This, oh, that feels so fun. I love this deck so much. It's one of my favorite decks ever. I turn to it when I need something comfortable, safe, but also something that pushes my boundaries. So I love that one. Our next prompt here is Fantasy, a deck that transports you to an imaginary world with magic, mystical creatures, or elements of the supernatural that don't exist in the real world. Now, I love a lot of fantasy movies. Fantasy is my husband's second favorite genre, I would say. I've watched The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, excuse me, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers more times than I can count, because of him. But my pick for film for this genre is Labyrinth with David Bowie. That movie I have primarily chosen because it matches the energy for the deck that I wanted to choose, which is the Surrealist Tarot. Love the backs on this one. This deck is like fantasy, but like not the parts of it that are nice. This deck is like Return to Oz rather than the Wizard of Oz. This deck is challenging, and I love that about it. It's dark fantasy, like really dark fantasy, and so it reminds me of several different sequences in Labyrinth, not the least of which including the MC Escher-esque stairwell chase type scene, like not chase in the traditional sense, but like romantic chase. And romantic is like a queasy word to use for that relationship, but it's the word you have to use. It's the correct word to use. That film is romantic in all of the gross ways that everyone probably who doesn't like it will tell you that it is. So this deck definitely gives me fantasy vibes in an uncomfortable way. I mean, like, obviously this is surrealism, which is its own genre entirely. Like, don't get me started on German film. But this deck nevertheless is one that stands on its own as a fantasy deck as well. I had another one that was more obvious in my collection, the Phantasma Tarot, but that one was just so on the nose, like, and it's the safe kind of fantasy. It's like childish fantasy. Meanwhile, this one is the uncomfortable fantasy for adults. Our next prompt is going to be comedy, a deck that is humorous, amusing, or induces laughter and or a sense of enjoyment. Now, comedy is probably my favorite genre of film. I love me a good rom-com especially. But for this, I have two films that I would like to mention, and that is Swiss Army Man, starring Daniel Radcliffe as a farting corpse, and Bottoms, which is a lesbian fight club film. And the decks that I have chosen for this are actually, hold on, let me grab both of them. We'll do the playing card deck first. I want to mention Dryfus Art playing cards. This deck I also got from Art of Play, and it is bubbly. It's still in order as well. It is bubbly and fun. It is, like, I could have chosen this one for another prompt as well, but this deck gives me comedy in the Swiss Army Man kind of way. Like, there's something about this that is almost but not quite fart humor, and I don't know why I feel that. I don't think that this particular artist would agree with my read on their deck. But yeah, I think it's kind of fart humory, and I mean, like, all the pictures repeat, so I don't need to keep going through the deck. But this deck gives me comedy vibes. Maybe it's the, I don't know, the Adventure Time-esque drawing style. I don't know, but it definitely is a funny one. It makes me want to laugh when I use it. Well, I've never used it in a reading. I've only flipped through it and gone, ha, 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 to myself. But my next choice is the Gay Marseille. This deck makes me laugh, not because it's like, haha, gay people, but because it's so lighthearted. This deck is not trying to be funny, but it's the kind of deck that's just so good-natured that it makes you laugh anyway. And I have reversals in here. I hate that. Okay, maybe it's just upside down. Maybe that was just the one card. Maybe. This deck is a Marseille deck, so it's pips, brightly colored. It's gay. It's got a bunch of queer folks in it. It's got one card, this is the one in particular. This one makes me laugh. It's Six of Swords, Transition, Science, HRT, both of those. It's so funny, and it's such a good pick for this card. And this deck makes me laugh the way Bottoms made me laugh. Like, it's a little bit Dadaist, almost. And not really. Bottoms is a little bit Dadaist, but there's all aspects of this that I guess, oh, here we go. This one gives me Dada. Gives me surrealism, but like with a point. Not just like the point being haha. I don't know if that's a good way to describe Dadaism. Please don't take that to your film theory class. Yeah, I like this deck. It makes me laugh. it's not necessarily just a comedy deck, but that's the prompt that I'm picking it for. All right. So then we have drama, and I literally had to text my husband and say, help me, I don't know what my favorite drama movie is, because I literally could not think of one. The actual prompt for this says, a deck that focuses on conflicts in characters' lives that takes on a more serious tone. And the film that my husband was like, oh, you don't actually really watch, like, you don't really like most of the movies that are in that genre. You never want to watch them. And I'm like, damn, you're right. But a film that can be classified as drama, although you could also kind of classify it as a thriller if you squint, but Doubt. I actually have no idea what year this movie was made in, but it's got Meryl Streep in it. She plays a nun, and it's got Dennis Hoffman in it, and he plays a priest. And it's really good, but trigger warning for like sexual topics, essay topics, and religion. I mean, the main characters are a priest and a nun, so it definitely touches on religious trauma and essay. But the question throughout the entire film is, like, do you trust this man or not? Should you trust this man or not? And how fanatical is Meryl Streep's character being in trying to protect her domain? How much of this is personal versus how much of this is true? And it's a very interesting film for somebody who, you know what, let me not get into my personal backstory with that one. The deck that I chose for this topic, we're going to move on. The deck that I chose for this topic is the Jonasa House 7th edition. This is made in the Marseille tradition. These are the backs. And because it is made in the Marseille tradition, it's all about the ways the cards look at each other in your spread, whether that's a tableau or a more traditional tarot spread. Where are their eye lines going? What do their postures suggest? Like, let's say if our Queen of Wands came up and she's looking kind of seductively, let's say that came up with her looking seductively at the Magician, maybe the Queen of Wands energy is helping you or is wanting some assistance with regards to getting the tools and skills necessary in order to enact the fiery plans and like machinations that the Queen of Wands wants to get set into motion, right? Like, maybe that's how I would interpret that. And so these cards are meant to talk to one another in the spread, and that is how you're meant to read them. And so this takes your question seriously. It's just a very interpersonal relationship drama, award-winning kind of deck. Like, this is the sort of thing the Academy would eat up, you know? So boink, that's my answer there. Next, we have Documentary, a deck that depicts real-life people, animals, events, or situations that may be educational or informative. For this one, I had to kind of cheat a little bit. I love documentaries, don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore them. They're one of my favorite genres to just watch. I have the easiest time committing time to documentaries because I feel like I'm like bettering myself when I consume them or whatever. But I don't have a deck that really fit the original prompt, so I'm gonna tweak it a little bit, and I'm gonna talk about I'm gonna match my deck to a movie. And the movie that I want to mention is a docudrama, which is these days what is the most common type of film, but this film established the docudrama as a genre, as well as establishing the concept of a video essay that we have so prevalent on the internet today. And that is F for Fake by Orson Welles. This is one of my favorite films of all time. It is the most film I have ever seen. It is my choice for the best film ever made in the English speaking world. I haven't seen enough films outside of the English speaking world to be able to say if it has any like if there's anything that upspurs it. There may be, I don't know. But in the English speaking world, it's one of the best films made of all time. I think it's better than Citizen Kane. I think people who sit there and suck the dick of the film Citizen Kane have no idea what the rest of our good friend Orson Welles' oeuvre looks like, and looks like, and as such, they are not putting the respect on the film that deserves it, which is F for Fake. And that is the last film that Orson Welles made before he died. Anyways, I'm taking way too long to talk about this. The deck that I chose to match with this, the docudrama deck that I have chosen, is the Rosebud Tarot. This deck really incorporates these fantastical storytelling elements with real life people. And for that, I think it really suits the docudrama genre. It really matches the energy of F for Fake. It's got like this unreliable narrator type of energy, where it's like you have to question whether this deck or you is the one that's kind of pulling your leg a little bit, like who here is not telling the whole truth. And it's you. The answer is always you. You're the one not telling the whole truth. And this deck is just really fun in that way. And some of these people depicted here are like historically known and relevant to movements and things. And then other people here are basically anonymous, as far as I know. And maybe I'm incorrect on that. I know that, for example, I believe it's Tammy Pie said that she did research on this deck and found a lot of information about the people pictured in it, so maybe she'll correct me down below if I'm wrong. God forbid I do my own research, right? Our next prompt here is number 11, an animated film, which is kind of... Quinn in the original video, they acknowledge that an animated film is not really a genre so much as it is a medium for filmmaking, but we're going to go ahead and fudge that a little bit just so that we can make this cute little prompt here. A deck with bright, expressive, or cartoon-like images that you probably would have enjoyed as a kid and still love as an adult. And so I could have chosen the Dryfus art playing cards for this prompt because they give... the Lorax kind of vibes a little bit, but the actual cartoons that really resonate with me, resonate with me, the actual animated films that speak to my childhood and my adulthood are things like El Dorado, Anastasia, Fern Gully. And so the deck singular that I have chosen for that, it doesn't match any one of those movies necessarily, but it's that cartoony, lighthearted, I've got a message for you, but it's one that you're going to be able to digest if you're only 5 years old. That deck is the Modern Witch Tarot. This deck, I know, the card stock, I get it. If you don't like it, you don't have to have it, but let me love it, okay? Let me love this deck. I don't give a shit about the awful card stock. It's way too thick. I know. I don't care. This deck is cartoony. It's a little bit childish, a little bit immature. But it's like immature in that young adult way that kids like to pretend that that is actually mature and that they can be. It's like, it's 18 to, well, really this deck is like 16 to 23 is kind of the energy this deck gives me. And, it's definitely got that animated movie vibe to it. It's definitely got that child-friendly energy to it, even though it's not made for children. And I really love this deck. I've described it as a mac and cheese deck before in a different VR. And that is something I think about every damn time I pull this deck out now is macaroni and cheese, like Velveeta shells and cheese specifically. That's this deck. Love it to pieces. Adore it. I don't read with it nearly often enough, but every time I do, I'm surprised at the profundity of the messages that it gives, despite the unassuming nature of the artwork. So next we have a Western, and for this I am picking an Oracle deck, a deck that embodies a deck that embodies a spirit of freedom, exploration, and adventure. And specifically, I wanted a deck that matched the outlaw energy, that is the Wild Wild West. I wanted a deck that met that anything goes kind of energy. And what better deck for outlaw energy than the Outlaw Oracle? This deck gives me Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This deck gives me the Searchers. This deck gives me that energy of the sheriff is the law here, but if you go outside of town, I'm the law. I love this deck. I love this deck so much. It even gives me Bonnie and Clyde vibes, which is, in my mind, the last sort of grandstand of the Wild Wild West in modern American culture. And this Oracle deck really hits that vibe for me. This is an independently produced deck. I have not been doing a good job of saying whether the decks are independently produced or not. But this deck is beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing. I have a whole video dedicated to the Outlaw Oracle wherein I expressed my mixed feelings on the deck. But ultimately, I do think that if it speaks to you, it is worth the money. Like, I think if the Outlaw Oracle speaks to that I've heard a lot of people say that it sort of reminds them of like aspects of their childhood and the way they grew up, and if it hits that mark for you, I do think that it can be worth the money if you are like in a financial position where an independently produced Oracle deck of 45 cards is not going to break your bank. So worth the money is relative, let me be clear. I think that the thing is about that deck is that I think that the people who would appreciate it the most, whose lives are most reflected in that deck, are not the people who can afford to buy it. That I think is my ultimate problem with the deck, is that it's too expensive for the culture that it's speaking to. All right, let's move on. I do think that the artist deserves every cent of that money. Let me not be clear. Hillary Banks self occasionally watches these videos, and I don't want her to think I don't think she deserves it. I just think that the production value of it is so luxe, and it doesn't, because of that, the price point of it is also luxe, and it makes it not match up in my head aesthetic versus de facto realities of the situation. Anyways, let's move on to our last little prompt here. This is another one where we sort of smudge the idea of a genre a bit, but we are going to be talking about a black and white film, your favorite black and white deck, or a vintage deck from another era. So my favorite black and white film is Sunset Boulevard by and far. Fucking love that movie. Love a good, I'm gonna spoil it. I don't give a shit. It's old enough that you should have seen it by now. It's a spoiler that they give you right at the beginning of the film, but the narrator of the film is dead when the film starts. And so you get the film narrated by a dead guy, and it's wonderful. Love it a lot. And my deck for that is the Bianco Nero. I've only got 2 black and white decks in my collection, and one of them is the one that Quinn picked for their answer, so I'm not going to use that one. So the Bianco Nero is my choice. I have modified this deck by chopping the borders off of it and leaving it in this square or rectangular shape with sharp corners. I love this deck so much. I learned to read primarily on this deck. It's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone in many ways, but it's the artist's own artwork, obviously. Hold on, what's his name? Marco something? Pierretto. Love it so much. Sensual, sexy, black and white line art. Gives me etchings vibes, woodblock vibes, I guess. It's not too busy the way like the Tarot of the Abyss is, or the Hermetic Tarot. I don't have either of those decks. I want the Hermetic Tarot for like study purposes, but the Tarot of the Abyss is just too damn busy for me. I can't. I like the differing weights of the line art here. It makes it much easier for my eyeballs to go num 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 on it. I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. Thank you for hanging out. That was the last prompt. There are 13 prompts here. Nice and unholy and unlucky. So we love to see that. Please, all of the people that I would have tagged, I'm pretty sure Quinn already tagged. If I can think of somebody that I have, like somebody that I follow or know about that Quinn did not tag that I think is likely to enjoy this one, I will tag them down below. But other than that, this one was a long one. We talked a lot. I talked a lot. I love to hear my own voice. Not literally because it gives me dysphoria, but like you know, energetically, I love to hear my own voice. Vibes-wise, I love to hear my own voice. All right, thank you for hanging out. Please, if you do not have, like, if you do not make a tag of the, if you do make a tag of this video, if you do a VR, because you saw mine, please, like, mention it in the comments or let me know, or tag me in it so that I can see, but obviously also tag Quinn. I'm gonna leave their original video down below as well. Yeah, so that's that on that. Leave a comment about your choices for movies or decks that you think would fill this prompt for you if you're not going to make the video, or if you do make the video, like I said, let me see it. And thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe, especially liking and commenting. My channel has been really stagnant at this point, and I know it's because I am not consistent with my upload days, and so, like, I don't want to do too much complaining, like, oh, the algorithm's out to get me, because, like, the entire point is not to make money here for me. I don't have enough followers to make money, and even if when I ever get there, like, monetization is not my primary source here. I don't want this to be my income. I want it to be a place where I can come and express myself freely and openly, and I'm not trying to, like, get huge, but I would love to find my people. And so if you think that you would like other people to be able to see this video, even if you don't have anyone in particular that you want to share it directly with, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe, and those things will help the algorithm to get this to my people. Whether that's 2 other people that have never seen my content before, or 50, that would be super cool. I just want more people who are passionate about tarot and who like talking about tarot decks to leave fun little comments sharing their experiences on my videos so that I can read them and connect, and we can have that really cool exchange of energy as I think oh god, several different tarot tubers describe it that way, as an exchange of energy. Yeah, so yeah, just thanks for being here. I appreciate you so much. I love getting to talk about this stuff, and it warmed my heart, I tell you, when I saw that Quinn had tagged me in their video. That made me so fucking happy. So I love you. Mwah. Bye.